Hi everyone, I just wanted to come on and give you a quick understanding of what a literary analysis is and just some key features of it. So while we do think of a literary analysis as a formal essay a lot of times, anytime that we are talking about literature and analyzing it, looking for meaning, messages, looking at different techniques, think about the context, just thinking critically about it, you're doing a form of literary analysis. And I want to say that to reassure you that you have experience with this even if you haven't written a formal essay like this. So there are some key features to a literary analysis. The first one is that it needs to be an arguable thesis. So a summary is not an argument. You need to think about analysis, not evaluation. So an example statement would be like, Woolf's novel is a failed experiment in narration. Okay, you're evaluating how well this thing did or didn't do instead of analyzing and thinking critically and making an argument from that. You need to have a clear interpretation using very specific information. So when your thesis is arguable, it's also clear. And it's okay to recognize that there can be more than one meaning from a piece of literature. You just need to show in a legitimate, logical way that your argument is based in the text. So even if the text isn't fully logical in terms of maybe it jumps around, has an unreliable narrator, your argument needs to be logical. We also need to pay careful attention to the text language. So that means that we are looking at specific words, images, or metaphors. And one quote from a Norton handbook says that you need to read with the assumption that every word of a text is meaningful. While yes, that may not always be true, when you are reading and doing a literary analysis, paying careful attention to the language is going to help you in the long run. The next key feature would be paying attention to a pattern or themes. This can reveal meaning to us that we may have missed, or at least reveal something that is deemed important. Now, if it's an oral piece of literature, so we're listening to a song or a poem, maybe it's through the rhyme scheme, or it could be written, so this could be repeated words, images, characters, those kind of things happening. The next key feature is the fact that tense matters. So when we're discussing textual features, we are looking to be in present tense. So if we're describing what's happening, it's in present tense. So Aelin races against time to save Terrasen, right? So she is actively racing. However, when we give the context or talk about the history, society around it, then it becomes in past tense. So even in the 1950s, it was rare for a home to have a microwave oven. Okay, so that's past tense because we're talking about history, but if I was in the story, I'd be using present tense. And then lastly, most of the time we are going to be using MLA features. Because MLA is where we study the humanities. Now, you could be reading from a publication that has the different rules, but in general, literary analysis are done in MLA style. So, how do I get started? Great question. First, you need to read critically. Get past your initial reaction. So your knee-jerk, I like this, I don't like this. You can have those. You can build a reader response from that, but most of the time that's not where we want to stop. We have to move past that initial thought. You are going to need to read the text multiple times. The first time you're getting a basic understanding of what's going on. The second, third, fourth, fifth time, that's when you start seeing the techniques, patterns, details. You can read only looking for this piece of evidence, or you can read looking for that. So you do need to be willing to read critically, and that you move past your initial response and you read it multiple times. Then you also have to decide, what do you want your method of analysis to be? So if you want to analyze the text itself, maybe you're looking at themes, characters, language, patterns, techniques. Maybe you're looking at multiple works, what theme unites them, or what common discussion are they having between those texts. Your response as a reader. So as I mentioned, you can have a reader response essay. That's not really the focus of this class, and it's not as common because that's more of a reflection, but maybe you start there and develop your ideas. So I really like this because of the way that it treated gender roles and showed that maybe traditional gender roles are out of date. Oh, okay, that's why you liked it. That's your response. But then I can just focus in on gender roles and develop a further analysis. Then you also can look at the context. So thinking about the text as a piece of a larger period, social event, or culture, or does this piece fit into the social context of the time? So you have different views you can approach, but no matter what, as the Norton likes to remind us, you need to focus on analyzing and interpreting your subject, not just summarizing or paraphrasing. This is not meant rudely, but if we need a summary, we can go to Google and find thousands of them, right? So you, as a writer of this literary analysis, you want to add to the conversation. You want to develop the ideas further. Don't just stop with a summary. Give us your thoughts and evidence. So how can I form my opinions? Graff and Birkenstein gives some really good ideas in their textbook, They Say, I Say. So I've copied some of that information here for you guys. But unfortunately, it's not really an explicit, clear way on how to form your opinions. It's kind of up to you. So you can look at clues in the dialogue, the plot, look at imagery, look at symbolism, what kind of language is used, what is not said, what is not used, because why is that left out? Also remember that the I, if you have a first-person narrator, is not always reliable, because maybe they have a bias, maybe they have a certain perspective that as a narrator they want you to achieve. So be careful with that. But outside of those clues, you can also look at the conflict. So this is where Graff and Birkenstein say you can think about what is the central conflict, what side, if any, does the text seem to favor, what is your evidence, and how might others interpret your evidence differently. And that's important because, like I said, people have different perspectives and interpretations of literature, so you need to make sure that yours is very clear, and this is why this is the correct version of that. And then what is your opinion of the text? Those can help you look at the conflict and form, okay, where maybe I might want to go, what's my opinion, how do I feel about this? Then there are some other great questions that I'm going to leave up here, and if you want to pause and take a picture or copy them over, all these questions can help you consider and develop meaning and think about, okay, where might I want to go? And there is a lot in here about language, because if we're dealing with a written text, language is going to be very important. The word choice, how they describe those, all of that's going to keep coming up over and over and over again. So you will see that a lot in these types of questions. But some other things I just want you to think about before you go on to the next video is that in a literary analysis, your evidence is going to look a little bit different. So you can use evidence in terms of the plot, characters, the patterns of language. You might use specific quotes. You might use an actual dialogue chunk in a block quote. You may use historical references in context. You may look at the tone of the writing. And it's okay to acknowledge that while your point is the argument you want to make and that none of this evidence is set in stone, you do just want to make sure that you are being clear, that you're logical, and that this is a really good way to interpret it. But just be prepared for your literary analysis that you might have to use some different forms of evidence than you're used to, and that's okay. That's what makes literature really fun to discuss, because we all have different perspectives and look at things differently.